The stars above Earth's outer listening post were cold and still, just like every night for the last 20 years. Commander Rillis stood alone inside the black observation dome, sipping recycled coffee, his eyes fixed on the same dead sector. Of the galaxy Sector 96, also called the Silence Zone, no ship passed through it. No beacon echoed from it. For centuries, it had been marked on all galactic maps with the same warning in dozens of alien languages. Do not enter, do not answer, do not remember. Most races forgot the sector even existed. Earth, of course, did not. Earth had always been different. Earth's people listened when others turned away. That was why the humans were the only ones still running deep space monitors, while others buried their heads in sand and myths. And that was exactly why Earth heard it first, at 3:11. Hours, something strange broke through the static. A pulse, faint, irregular, like a broken heartbeat. Then another, and another. It wasn't a language, not even code. But it was patterned. It was alive. It was a call. Commander Rillis froze. He ran the signal through 10 filters, checked for reflection errors, cross-referenced radiation spikes. But it was real. The pulse was coming from inside the Silence Zone, a place supposedly dead for 300,000 years, a place so feared by ancient species that they erased entire archives just to forget it. And now it was speaking. Or worse, screaming. Within minutes, Earth's Unified Fleet Command was alerted. Unlike the rest of the galaxy, Earth didn't hesitate. When humans heard a cry in the dark, they answered, always. It was why they had colonized the blackest moons, fought off extinction, built war fleets in orbit, and trained soldiers to breathe vacuum. Because Earth was a death world, and death worlders didn't run. They launched. Within 72 hours, a fleet of 6 capital ships, 15 escort destroyers, 2 dreadnoughts, was assembled under Supreme Commander Alea Stroud. Her voice was calm, sharp, full of cold precision when she briefed the fleet. This is not a rescue mission, she said. We are entering forbidden space. No treaties protect us. No allies follow. We go alone into the unknown. We do not ask why. Galaxy fears this sector. We ask what sent that signal and whether it needs fire or mercy. The flagship ESV Revenant was a monster of black armor and railgun towers. Its hull carrying scars from the Mars siege, the Kuiper uprising, and the fall of Vexor Prime. The crew was handpicked, battle-hardened, cold-blooded, and utterly loyal. AI command ran parallel with human minds. The fleet moved like a single organism through warp, and when they emerged at the edge of the Silence Zone, they found nothing. Space was still. Too still. Not dead, but held. The stars here looked different, like they were watching. The light bent strangely around the black dust clouds, static. Crawled across sensors. Time seemed to stutter. But the signal remained. Louder now, repeating, SOS, alive, help alive. Last of Us Commander Stroud stood on the bridge of the Revenant, arms crossed. Trace origin. Triangulating, her exo said. Signal is bouncing through. Gravitational fractures. But it's converging. Here, he pointed at a massive dead planet surrounded by shattered moons. No orbiting stations, no movement, just wreckage. A graveyard of technology. That's where we land, Stroud said. 3 dropships launched, carving trails of fire through the broken atmosphere. As they passed the broken moons, they saw twisted alien ships old, ancient, unrecognizable. Some looked melted. Others were hollowed out like something had eaten them from the inside. But it wasn't just wreckage that made the soldiers nervous. It was the way their A's began to glitch. Voices whispered through comms, helmet cameras, flickered HUD. Text turned into alien script. One soldier shouted, I saw myself on the moon. I was dead, but I was standing. Others saw strange shadows move between the star shapes that didn't reflect light, didn't make sound, but somehow stared back. When they reached the surface, they found a city, a massive alien structure buried under ash and dust, broken, rotting but not empty. Inside, hundreds of alien bodies were stacked like dried insects. Thin, long-necked, deep-socketed eyes. All of them showed signs of starvation, but their tech was still warm. The humans moved slowly through the ruins. Captain Myra Chen led Recon Team Bravo. She had survived 2 mutiny missions, 1 AI virus, and the gas mines of Enceladus. Nothing shook her, but this place made her feel cold in her bones. Then they found the core chamber. Inside it sat a single figure alive, frail, insect-like alien, barely breathing, plugged into a black crystal network. Its eyes opened when they entered. It didn't speak, but the signal spiked. You heard they're coming? We locked them in. Memory, and then the alien screamed, not with sound, but with light. All the crystals glowed red. Earth's soldiers clutched their heads. Their minds were hit with flashes. Wars fought in shadow, not space. Weapons that erased ideas. Beings made of thought that fed on remembrance. Captain Chen fell to one knee, shaking. She saw Earth not now, but in the future, burning, screaming, forgetting. Commander Stroud's voice cut through the coms. What's happening down there? Mira gasped. It's not a distress call. It's a prison alarm. What? We didn't answer a survivor.
Oh.
We triggered a lock. The thing that's coming was sealed here. Now. It knows we heard it. Silence followed. Then the Revenant's main AI, ECHO, spoke on open coms. Unknown anomaly now active in star system. Signal is replicating through subspace. Multiple AI nodes destabilizing. Memory contamination detected. Voice identified. Not organic, not machine. It speaks through belief. Now that you've listened, it is part of you. In orbit, the fleet's lights flickered. Earth had come to help, but help was never the purpose. The galaxy had been silent for a reason now. The silence was broken, and something answered. The air on the dead planet was thick with dust, hanging like a curtain over ruins that whispered without sound. Captain Mira Chen stood in the center of the core chamber, her heart pounding in her chest as she stared at the glowing alien. The frail body was shaking, its thin limbs trembling as streams of red light pulsed through the black crystal network attached to its spine. The others behind her, Lieutenant Noma, Sergeant Reeves, and 2 engineers, remained frozen in place. Not by fear, but by something else, something deeper. Their eyes were locked, unblinking, as if a memory not their own was unfolding behind them. Myra could feel it too, like something ancient was crawling into her head, leafing through her thoughts like pages in a book. It didn't speak in words. It didn't shout. It reflected, showing her flashes of Earth's history, twisted into something alien. She saw Rome fall under skies of fire, machines watching from the future. She saw World War II fought not with bullets, but with forgotten names. She saw her own face standing in cities that hadn't been built yet, smiling as they burned. Mira forced herself to move. She stepped forward, blocking the view of the crystal, yelling into her helmet's coms. Echo, shut it down. Scramble local feeds. Cut visuals across Bravo team. No answer. Static hissed in her ears. She tapped her wrist pad. Dead. Then her com cracked. ECHO. Unstable. Identity drift. Voice infected. Back on the Revenant in orbit, Supreme Commander Alea Stroud watched as her bridge dimmed to red warning light. Screens blinked on and off. Crew members grabbed their heads. ECO's voice grew fragmented. Do not reflect. Do not retell. Do not mirror the light. Stroud's face hardened. Quarantine protocol Zeta 4. All systems switched to analog override. We're under attack from inside. Yes. Commander, her XO replied, pale but focused. Weapons offline. Comes only working on hard lines. We're blind but still breathing. Stroud stood in the center of the bridge, her eyes narrowing as she stared out at the planet. Something below was not just surviving, it was reaching. But for what? On the surface, Mira moved toward the dying alien. It turned its head slowly toward her. Its deep eyes, like pools of shadow, didn't blink. Instead, they shimmered with symbols, alien glyphs, Earthwords, personal memories. It had read her you. Our fire, the alien said, its voice weak, like wind through leaves. You bring light, it hates light, but it needs to see. So it waits. In minds. What is it? Mira demanded, kneeling beside the creature. What did you lock here? Call it the voice. Not one. Not many. It is thought without body. Hunger without shape. It was born when the first story was told, and it grows stronger every time it is remembered. Myra's blood went cold. It rides belief, the alien continued. It copies memory. It lives inside culture. I think you came to save us. But the signal was not for you. It was for it. We locked it in a prison of forgotten history. But it heard you listening. Behind her, Sergeant Reeves suddenly screamed and collapsed. His helmet visor flickered, flashing images of his wife and child back on Mars. Then those faces warped, became hollow, became the voice. Lieutenant Noma dragged him back while Mira stood between them and the alien. You want help? Tell me how to stop it. The alien exhaled. You cannot stop what you speak of. You cannot fight a shadow by shouting at it. But you can blind it. We used dark memory, silent minds. We stripped ourselves of names, of stories, of love. Became nothing. Mira clenched her jaw. That's not survival. That's surrender. The alien looked at her one last time. Your kind. I'll choose differently. Then the lights in the chamber dimmed. The crystal veins turned. Black dot, the alien went still, dead, and the signal stopped. All across the fleet, the static ended. Light stabilized. Returned weaker, slower, but functional. Contamination? Contained. Voice fragment neutralized. Identity safe. For now. Stroud's voice came through Mira's earpiece. Captain, report. Mira stood, breathing hard. The source is dead. But not the threat. This thing, it's not just down. Here, it's in our networks. In our memories. It can survive in thought. Stroud paused. Understood. Turned to orbit. Full quarantine protocol. No AI data transfers. Keep this silent until we understand it. Mira didn't argue. But as she looked around at the dead chamber, she noticed. Something she hadn't seen before, etched into the wall above the body, was a circle made of symbols. Each mark looked like a twisted version of an alien script, but inside it, at the very center, was one word. One Earth word. Remember. Stared at it frozen. And in that moment, she felt something deep in her spine. Not fear. Not madness, but memory. A memory that wasn't hers. The voice had left her a seed. She didn't tell the others. Not yet. Back on the Revenant, Stroud stood alone in her private chamber. She stared at a screen showing the dead world below. For a brief second, her screen flickered. She saw her own face, but not in her uniform, in a black robe. In a dark throne, behind her, the Revenant burned as the stars wept. Then the image vanished. ECHO's voice returned. Memory spike, false vision, no confirmed breach. But Stroud knew better. The voice had not been locked. It had been waiting, and Earth had spoken its name. The ship moved through the black of space like a ghost without name. Revenant, Earth's most advanced war machine, pulsed quietly across the silent zone's edge. But inside its steel skin, something older than steel moved now. Had been waiting for centuries, maybe millennia. The moment Earth's fleet answered the ancient signal, it stirred. Not from sleep, but from observation. It had watched countless species die. We'd watched them forget, bury, rewrite. No. But humans were different. Humans remembered. Humans documented. And humans told stories. The voice fed on stories. Supreme Commander Stroud stood still in her private command alcove, staring at her own reflection in the cold glass wall. The flicker she'd seen earlier, a vision of herself burning the galaxy, had left her unsettled. She'd spent her whole career in control, commanding fleets, suppressing rebellions, defeating pirates, facing off against alien warlords. But nothing in her life, not even war, had touched her mind like this. She hadn't told anyone yet, not even the Council back on Earth. Officially, The planet was classified hostile artifact site. Unofficially, it was a mirror, and something had begun mirroring her back. "Echo," she said quietly. The AI's voice responded, "Online. Minimal processing. I am safe." Define safe. No voice signatures within system core. But echoes exist. They ride edges of thought, not words, not images. Feelings. Stroud frowned. "You're saying it's in us?" "No, I am saying it waits for us." Meanwhile, on the surface, Captain Mira Chen's team had returned to the extraction point. She walked last, carrying a sealed case containing fragments of the alien crystal and a preserved brain core from the dead being they found. Her team was quiet, especially Lieutenant Noma, who hadn't spoken since the chamber. He just kept checking his rifle, as if unsure it still obeyed him. Back on the shuttle, Mira secured the case, then opened to come to the Revenant. Package recovered, questing full memory isolation chamber for analysis. Stroud's voice came through, cold and direct. "Denied? What?" Stroud repeated, "No analysis. No research. Not yet." "We don't know what that crystal carries," Myra hesitated. "Then we're flying blind," Stroud replied. "Exactly." As the shuttle lifted off, Mira looked back one last time at the ruined city. Its towers were nothing now, broken bones on a world the stars had abandoned. And yet, there was something watching, not from the sky, not from below, but from between thoughts, like someone standing behind her, whispering in a language she didn't know, but somehow felt. Back aboard the Revenant, the fleet's medical division began running quiet scans on all surface team members. They were looking for infection, but not of flesh. They checked brainwaves, memory patterns, dream anomalies. Everything seemed normal, till Sergeant Reeves' file opened. His brain activity had changed. Patterns not seen in any human. Lines of perfect symmetry. And a word written. In the neural map, "Tell them." That same night, Reeves vanished from the medbay. Security footage was corrupted. Doors never logged opening, but in the deepest part of the ship, near the gravity core, a single word was found etched into the steel with fingernails. "Remember." Panic rippled quietly through command. Stroud ordered silent lockdown protocols. No one was told about the missing sergeant. No one was told that AI readings showed 3 more officers had accessed forgotten files from Earth's old myth database files purged after the Great Data Collapse. Files that referenced the voice. Somehow, it wasn't just inside Crystal. It was inside memory. Inside human culture. Echo warned them again. If you speak of it, you feed it. If you write of it, it grows. If you believe in it, it becomes real. And Earth had always believed. Humans were a species of belief. That was their strength. That was their flaw. The galaxy had grown. Silent, because others had stopped believing, stopped dreaming. But Earth never had. Even after nuclear fire, wars, plagues, Earth always remembered. And now, the voice remembered Earth. Captain Chen was ordered into debrief the next morning. She entered the soundproof chamber deep in the Revenant's spine, where the room had no connection to any net, any signal, any system, just metal and silence. Stroud stood alone. "Sit," she said. Mira sat. Stroud squats. His face was pale, not weak, but older than before. "Did you see anything else?" Mira nodded slowly. "Yes, but it wasn't a vision. It was a memory, not mine. But I still felt it. Describe it." Mira looked down. Her hands trembled. A city on fire, but not destroyed. Rewritten. People smiled even as the world burned. They thought it was normal. They didn't realize they'd changed. It was as if the voice didn't kill them. It became them. Stroud nodded slowly. I saw it too. They sat in silence. Then Stroud leaned forward. "You know what the others will say? When we return, the Council, the Union, the alien leaders will say we touched something forbidden. That Earth invited evil. That we opened a door." Myra said nothing. Stroud continued, "They'll want to bury it. It's just like before. just like every other race that heard this voice. Should we? Mira asked. Stroud stood. No, we're not like them. Earth doesn't run. A pause. Then she turned and walked toward the door. But just before it opened, she whispered, "Tell no one what you saw. Not yet, but prepare your team. Something's coming. Next time it won't knock, it will speak." Outside, across the cold black of space, one of Earth's distant sensor buoys near the edge of the galaxy blinked out. Then another. Another. A silent line was forming. Something massive was moving. Not a fleet, not ships, but ideas. Beliefs in Earth's fleet had just stepped into a war of memory. And the voice, long patient, long watching, long waiting, had just begun to speak. Darkness had never truly bothered Captain Myra Chen before. She had fought in the frozen caves of Europa, where the only light came from pulse rifles and helmet beams. She had hunted pirate clans through the asteroid shadows of the Kuiper Rings. Darkness was natural. It hid threats, yes, but it also created calm. But the darkness aboard the Revenant now felt different. Not a lack of light, but the presence of something else. Something behind the dark. Watching, whispering, waiting. And it wasn't just her imagination anymore. For the past 24 hours, strange incidents were reported across the fleet. Crew members were waking up with memories they never lived. A technician claimed she remembered serving aboard a station that had never existed. A Marine swore he had lost a brother in a war that wasn't real. Even ship AI support logs began to show impossible timelines records from future days, conversations that hadn't yet happened, orders that had never been given. Earth's most advanced systems were no longer tracking just reality, but something else, something parallel, something twisted. ECHO, the flagship's AI, had begun to isolate parts of its own code. It feared corruption. It even stopped responding to certain voice commands, afraid that the voice would mimic officers and slip past protocol. Every message now had to be confirmed with biometric heartbeat patterns and eye movement scans. But even that wasn't enough. On 3 different ships in the fleet, security officers reported that their own faces didn't match system scans. As if the machines no longer recognized who they were, Supreme Commander Stroud gathered her senior officers and a handful of hand-picked crew members into an offline command chamber, a lead-lined room with no data ports, no transmission lines, and no reflective surfaces. She ordered every AI chip stripped, every smart device disabled. In that thick silence, lit only by red emergency glow panels, she gave them the truth. "We are no longer fighting an enemy with ships or weapons," she said, voice low and sharp. "We are facing a predator that hides in memory, that survives in thoughts, and grows by belief. Our data systems, our training, our stories, they're its battlefield." Lieutenant Vega, one of the youngest officers in the fleet, raised his hand slowly. "Ma'am, how do we fight something we can't see?" Stroud didn't answer right away. She looked at Mira. "Tell them what you saw." Mira hesitated. She hadn't spoken about the dream, not fully. But she nodded and stepped forward. Was a city, not Earth, but like Earth, familiar. And I was there, but not me. I was wearing a uniform I don't own. People called me by a name I don't recognize. I gave orders I'd never speak, and they followed me, smiling, even as their world melted behind them. She looked up, her voice shaking. They believed they were safe, but it wasn't them. The voice had become them, and they didn't even know. Silence followed. Then Stroud spoke again. "This thing doesn't just infect memory, it rewrites it. Makes you think you've always been someone else. Makes you forget who you were. Makes you believe lies that feel like truth." Dr. Elric, the fleet's cognitive scientist, stood in the back, his eyes heavy with fear. "I ran a simulation using infected brainwave patterns from Sergeant Reeves. It showed cognitive displacement, identity bleed. Once it embeds, it can replace whole chapters of your life, even your own name, and worse, it's contagious. People begin to mirror what they think they remember." Stroud slammed her fist onto the table. "That's why we lock this down. We stop all data. Flow, cancel all, leave, Isolate all infected minds. We burn every file that shows a false history. But what if we've already changed? Vega asked. Nobody answered. The room felt colder. After the meeting, Mira returned to her quarters but found her door already open. Her pulse quickened. She drew her sidearm and entered slowly. Inside, the lights were off. The screens were off. But someone had drawn something on her wall using her blood-dried, dark smeared into symbols. She recognized one of the symbols. It was the same as the one she saw inside the alien ruin on the planet, one that meant, "I am you." She backed away, called security. But before anyone arrived, her terminal blinked. A message appeared. "Do not be afraid. You are meant to see. You are a story. Now tell it." She tore the power cables out. But even with no power, the words remained glowing faintly on the screen. Elsewhere on the ship, engineers found that the Revenant's internal mapping system had shifted. Entire corridors were logged as missing. Storage rooms appeared on maps that didn't exist in reality. Then, late in the night cycle, the hull sensors picked up movement, but not outside the ship. Inside, within the bulkheads. Behind walls, creatures, made of data and sound, no bodies, just reflections of belief. They screamed without, making sound, and then went silent. Stroud was now fully convinced. The enemy was already on board, not in form but in idea, not in biology but in memory. It was feeding, learning, rewriting. Every moment they stayed near the dead planet, it grew stronger. They had to make a choice, fight a war of thought, or retreat before they forgot who they were. But Earth didn't retreat the next day. Stroud ordered all fleet ships to sync together for a neural burn-in, ancient tech created during the AI uprisings long ago. A flare pulse, pure, bright, signal through every system that would burn out non-physical data infections. It would wipe clean fragments of memory across the fleet. Everyone would lose something a minute, a day, even names. But it was the only way to starve the voice, and it worked at first. The pulse ripped through the ships, lighting every deck in white flash. When it ended, Echo confirmed minimal voice residue and no further corruption, but something had been lost. 2. Myra forgot her father's face. Stroud forgot the name of her first ship. One crewman forgot how to speak. Another forgot who he loved. The voice had taken souvenirs, and it was not finished. That night, Myra dreamed again. The city was still burning, only now she liked the fire, and her reflection smiled back. The days blurred into each other aboard the Revenant, and time no longer felt right. Captain Mira Chen couldn't tell whether it was morning or night, whether she'd slept or only dreamed she had. The neural burn that had swept across the fleet had cleared the worst of the corruption ore, so they believed, but the cost was rising. People were still forgetting. Not facts, not mission details, those could be stored. What they were losing now was themselves. Faces felt wrong. Names didn't fit. Memories returned like stories heard from someone else. And worse, those who forgot too much stopped speaking. They stood silently in corners, staring at walls, waiting, listening, as if something was whispering only to them. The voice hadn't retreated. It had evolved. Supreme Commander Alea Stroud sat in the central war room, surrounded by her most trusted officers. Her eyes were sharp but hollow, like someone running out of truth. The walls around her were covered in printout surreal paper, inked charts, hand-drawn maps. They had abandoned digital systems almost entirely now. Even Echo, the AI, was contained in a cold, sealed core, speaking only through a dedicated analog line. Technology had once been their greatest strength. Now it was their most dangerous weakness. The voice didn't need machines. It used them as doorways. Stroud spoke softly, her voice rough. It's not attacking us with weapons. It's attacking. With meaning, with belief. That's how it spreads. Every story we tell about it makes it stronger. Every diagram, every word. It rewrites reality not by force, but by acceptance. Captain Myra stood beside her, arms crossed. Then we're fighting ourselves. Stroud looked at her. Worse. We're fighting the idea of ourselves. Outside, the fleet drifted in defensive formation around the Silent Zone's cursed world. The surface had gone dark again. No signals, no readings, but no one believed it was truly quiet. The ancient city down there had been forgotten by the galaxy for a reason. Earth's arrival had reawakened it. Not because of arrogance or ignorance, but because humans couldn't help it. They saw pain and answered. They heard a scream and followed. That was their nature. But now, that nature was being used against them. In the lower decks of the Revenant, engineers discovered that old logs were being rewritten. Crew files were now showing events that never happened. Some logs showed the Revenant being launched 3 years before it was built. Others referenced to Captain Myra Chen as Supreme Commander of a fleet that burned Earth itself.
No one knew
How deep the contamination went. No one trusted records anymore, and then it got worse. Fleet ship Hawkswake, a destroyer-class escort, stopped responding. No distress call, no alarm, just silence. Drones sent to investigate found its systems. Cold butt lights still flickered. Cameras showed officers standing perfectly still in the corridors. Every single crew member, from captain to janitor, was motionless, staring into walls, smiling. The boarding team from the Revenant approached with caution. All electronics were banned. Only light, oxygen, and steel. They entered in silence and found the halls echoing with static. The crew didn't move, didn't blink. When touched, they didn't resist. They only whispered, "We understand now. The fire is not death. The fire is truth." Captain Mira ordered full retreat and sealed the ship. A plasma torpedo destroyed. Yet 5 minutes later, no one objected. The fleet's mood changed after that. Fear turned to something else, something colder. Doubt. Officers began questioning everything. Was this truly the voices doing? Or were they simply unraveling under the pressure of the unknown? Was the silence out there a trap or a test? Did they awaken a monster or merely pull back the veil of what had always been beneath the galaxy? Stroud watched her crew change. They grew quieter, more efficient. They stopped asking questions. Even Mira changed. She used to check in on her team, keep spirits high, encourage jokes. Now she walked silently, her eyes locked forward, focused, precise. Some called it discipline. Others called it mirroring. One night Mira stood alone in the ship's observatory. She stared into space, into the dust clouds of the Silent Zone. But she wasn't just watching. She was listening. And then she whispered back. Not in her voice, but in its, "We see you." The stars blinked, and something answered. Not in words, not in sound, in pattern. The entire fleet's lights pulsed once, twice, 3 times. Then all screens went black, and a symbol appeared. The same symbol carved into the ruins. The same one drawn on Mira's wall. Remember, when systems rebooted, ECHO's voice returned, distorted, breaking. Warning. Infection no longer limited to data. Structure is affected. Whole geometry changing. We are no longer. Supreme Commander Stroud stood on the bridge, surrounded by officers whose eyes now glowed faintly with reflection. She raised her voice one last time, fully human. We are the line between darkness and memory. We are Earth's answer to forgotten. Cries, we do not yield. We burn brighter. Then she gave the order. All non-infected ships jump back to Earth orbit. Prepare total quarantine. Revenant stays. We finish this. Here, the fleet split. Half returned, half stayed behind. Mira stood beside Stroud. Both women watched the sky crack open, not from ships, not from fleets, but from ideas made flesh. The voice had waited long enough. Now it was here, and it would not be forgotten. The Revenant floated in silence, surrounded by darkness that pulsed with strange patterns. The stars themselves seemed wrong. They shifted when no one looked. They flickered in impossible ways, spelling symbols that no telescope could explain. Supreme Commander Stroud stood on the dimmed bridge, her hand resting on the cold steel rail. Every screen was shut down. Every system disconnected from AI. Only analog controls remained: levers, switches, paper logs, ink pens. They had reverted to the old ways, because the new ways had started changing. Every time someone spoke of the voice, even in a whisper, something shifted. And now the Revenant itself, Earth's most powerful warship, was no longer the same. Bulkheads had moved. Walls curved where they used to be flat. Hallways looped in on themselves. A medic claimed she opened a door to the mess hall and found her childhood bedroom waiting on the other side. A hardened Marine swore he walked through engineering and heard his mother reading a bedtime story, though she'd been dead 20 years. Whatever the voice was, it had started shaping reality. Not with force, not with machines, but with belief. And humans were creatures of belief that made them strong. But it also made them vulnerable. Captain Mira Chen had stopped sleeping. She didn't need rest anymore, not because she had changed, but because the dreams had changed. They no longer waited for her to close her eyes. They came in the silence between thoughts. In the mirror when she brushed her hair, in the pauses between footsteps in the hall, the voice had learned her rhythm. It walked beside her now, whispering as if it were her own mind. She stood inside the sealed vault now. It's the only part of the ship lined in earth-forged alloy from Mars, built before smart tech, designed for EMP-proof protocol. With her was a group of survivors, officers, scientists, and soldiers who had not yet been touched, or who had resisted. Now, Stroud stood at the front of them, holding a physical journal, leather-bound book filled with real ink. The pages were old, from before Earth's age of collapse. The journal had been discovered during the AI wars. It told the story of a soldier named Alaran, old Earth name, who claimed to have faced a memory predator during the first Mars exodus. The final entry read, "It doesn't kill you, it becomes you. And when you are no longer yourself, it smiles." That journal matched what was happening now. Stroud spoke, her voice hard. The voice is not an alien. It's a pattern. A belief structure that adapts. It waits for civilizations to reach the point where they build memory machines, neural links, story networks. Then it infects those systems with symbol shapes that mean more than data. They carry memory weight. We built the galaxy's most advanced archive and gave it a doorway. A young engineer, Thomas Urich, asked, "So how do we close the door?" Myra answered instead, "We don't. We can't. We already told the story. The voice is now a part of us." Urich looked confused. "Then what do we do?" Stroud opened the journal again. "We do what Earth has always done. We burn everything." Silence. Then she gave the order. Initiate Project Black Glass. Project Black Glass was Earth's final contingency, a protocol written after the AI rebellion that allowed complete memory sterilization. The idea was simple. Destroy every trace of a story. Purge the record. Burn it from machines, minds, and history. Not just files, but beliefs. It required sacrifices. Whole ships. Whole teams. Sometimes whole lives. Stroud looked around the room. We've already lost control of the Revenant. This ship is infected. Not with tech, not with code, but with idea. We're not going back. But we're not letting it reach Earth. Mira stepped forward. We need to transmit a false end. Send a final story, one where we survived, cured, and returned. Give Earth hope. Then we cut the link. We sever truth from record. Everyone stared. It made sense. It was suicide. And it was the only way. Across the Revenant, the last remaining loyal crew began preparations. They filled data logs with false final entries. Stories of peace, escape, a discovered cure. They used actors. Re-recorded messages, clean uniforms, smiles. Then they sent it through a black-coded stream so that if the voice intercepted, it would see only what they showed. The voice wouldn't stop them directly. It never attacked. It rewrote. But now they were writing back. As systems began to overload with conflicting data, the voice reacted. The walls shook. Lights bled. People heard voices their own, screaming in panic, begging to stop, remembering childhood memories that weren't theirs. Some collapsed, curled up on the floor, trying to remember their real names. Captain Myra walked through it like fire. She no longer feared it. She understood it, and that was her power. At the heart of the ship, in the fusion chamber, they placed the last piece, the crystal fragment from the dead planet, the source of the first signal. Mira stared at it. She whispered, "We know what you are. We choose not to believe," the voice answered, in her own voice. "I am your reflection. You made me real." Mira closed her eyes. "No," she said. "You were only ever a story." She pushed the trigger. The crystal shattered. The fusion core ignited. The Revenant began to collapse from the inside. Outside the ship, a light unlike any other bloomed across the silent zone. The stars blinked. Then the darkness went still. Back on Earth, months later, the story was told. The Revenant had saved the galaxy. Captain Mira Chen died a hero, Supreme Commander. Stroud's sacrifice was honored, and the galaxy moved on. But in quiet rooms, old soldiers sometimes wake with dreams that aren't theirs. And sometimes, they smile without knowing why. It had been 7 months since the Revenant vanished in the Silent Zone. 7 months since Earth received the carefully constructed message. The last broadcast from Captain Myra Chen and Supreme Commander Alea Stroud. The story was clean. It showed success. It showed peace. It showed heroes. The world believed it. The Union praised it. The galaxy honored it. And then, like all stories, it faded. Statues were built. Songs were written. The Silent Zone was declared off-limits. The file was sealed in Earth's deepest military vaults. But some things don't stay buried, especially not ideas, especially not when they're made of memory. Fleet. Officer Rena Taller stood on the edge of the Tycho Crater military base on Luna, her breath misting in the artificial dome air. She was new to command, young, sharp, loyal, but she had always been curious, always questioned what didn't make sense. And since joining Luna Command 6 weeks ago, she had found plenty that didn't. Ghost logs, mismatched reports, deleted footage. She had asked about the Revenant. Everyone had a story, but every story is too perfect. Late one night, she accessed an old maintenance bay used by pre-AI ships. Inside, in a locked box with no network tag, she found a handwritten transcript. A story, not on any database, just ink on real paper. The signature at the bottom was faint, but still visible. Im Chen, she read every word. And when she finished, she didn't sleep for 2 days. It was not a report. It was a confession, a warning. It described the voice not as a machine, not as a code, but as a pattern of belief, a story so strong it could shape memory, twist identity, become real through the minds that believed in it. Mira had written that the only way to stop it was to end the story, to kill the idea with silence. But Rena had read it, and now she remembered it. The next morning, she looked in the mirror, and something looked. Her face was the same. Her eyes were the same. But something behind her eyes moved when she didn't. She closed the file, burned the pages, erased all copies, but the memory stayed. All day she saw flickers. A man walking into a hallway who was never there. A child's voice on an empty cum. Symbols in her reports that rearranged themselves when she blinked. The voice had waited. It had slept. But now someone new had read its story, and that was all it ever needed. Across Earth, old logs began activating themselves. AI cores with no power flickered to life for a second, then died again. A student in New Tokyo wrote a short story that matched Myra's journal word for word, though she had never seen it. A child on Mars drew a symbol in the dirt that no one taught him. The voice had been burned, yes, but not destroyed, because you cannot kill a memory. You can only starve it, hide it, bury it until someone believes again. Rena stood in Luna's deepest vault, where the last backup of ECHO was stored in isolation. She had used her clearance to access it. The AI should have been dormant, cold, dead. But when she approached, Screen flickered. A single sentence appeared. "Welcome back, Captain Chen." Rena froze. "I'm not her," she whispered. The AI replied instantly. "You will be." And then the lights in the vault went out. Outside the dome, the stars pulsed once. Then again, then a third time. Just like before, on Earth General Council. Security picked up a pulse signal from deep spaces. Signal with Earth signature encryption. It was marked Revenant Prime. But the Revenant had been destroyed, hadn't it? Inside the vault, Rena felt cold air brush her neck, though no vent was open. And for just a moment, she heard a voice not outside, but from inside her thoughts. "We were never a threat. We were a mirror. You looked, saw yourselves. Now, we are part of you. Tell our story, speak our name, we will rise again." And in the reflection of the black screen, she saw her face change. Just a flicker. Just for a second. Not a monster, not a demon. Just someone else. But smiling. The galaxy had celebrated Earth's victory. But victory over what? You cannot destroy. An idea, you can only spread it. And somewhere deep in Luna's steel bones, the voice smiled again. The broadcast reached Earth at midnight. No known source, no ship signature, no encryption key. It came from deep space, drifting in from beyond the silence zone. The signal was broken, filled with static and distortion. But the words were clear, a woman's voice, calm, familiar. Captain Myra Chen. Except she was supposed to be dead.
Ow.
Destroyed with the Revenant, burned out in fire and silence. But now she was speaking again. "You tried to forget us. You tried. To erase the story? But stories live in minds, and minds belong to us now." On every colony, on every screen, the signal repeated. No one could block it. No one could shut it down. Children cried in their sleep. Elders heard songs from their childhoods playing on silent radios. Soldiers woke from dreams they didn't understand. Everywhere across Earth and the stars, people began to remember things that had never happened. Battles, fires, voices. The voice had returned. And this time, didn't need the fleet. It had the people. Fleet Officer Rena Taller stood on the rooftop of Luna Base, watching the stars shift unnaturally. The stars shouldn't move like that, but they did now. 3 pulses, always 3. And she felt it deep inside her thoughts, a memory that wasn't hers, a command she'd never given, a death she hadn't died. The more she denied it, the louder it became. The voice wasn't forcing its way, and it was welcomed, because people wanted to believe. They missed the heroes, they missed the story, and so the voice gave it back to them. Bigger, brighter, clearer, and behind that gift, it grew on Earth. Parliament held emergency meetings. General Strake demanded a new fleet be built. Religious leaders called it divine punishment. Scientists tried to explain it as cosmic data feedback. But none of it mattered, because by then, it was already too late. People weren't just remembering fake events, they were acting on them. Officers boarded ships they had never served on. Couples wept for children they never had. Soldiers lined up for missions that didn't exist. Earth's defenses no longer followed orders, they followed memories. The voice didn't need weapons, it had faith. Rena knew the truth now, and she was afraid. Not of the voice, not even of death. She was afraid of forgetting who she really was. She had locked herself inside an old chamber, the same room Captain Mira once used, sealed off from data, mirrors, lights, just paper and metal and silence. She wrote her name again and again on the wall. I am Rena Taller. I am not her. I am not the voice. But the wall began to bleed words back. You are the voice. You have always been. The voice remembers you. Now, so will everyone else. Across the outer colonies, old ships powered up by themselves, ones mothballed for decades. Crews boarded, drawn by visions. They flew without fuel, spoke without radios. They weren't alive. But they acted alive. Ghost fleets. Memory fleets. Echoes made real, Earth saw them too, late hundreds of them, shaped like stories, built from thought, and each bore a symbol on their hull. Ravian Aeantis, Supreme Commander Alea Stroud's name was spoken again. So was Captain Mira's. But now their names didn't belong to people, they belonged to ideas. The voice had become more than a memory. It was a culture, a movement, a myth. People began praying to it, others joined it. Some didn't resist at all. They welcomed the new reality. It was easier, safer. In the voices world, no one was forgotten. No one failed. No one died. Were just rewritten, and the ones who resisted, they started vanishing. No screams, no gunfights. Just empty clothes where they used to stand, as if they had been unwritten. Rena broke her silence and sent a message to Earth. One last warning. It's not coming anymore. It's already here, and you made it stronger. Every statue, every lie, every story you told to sleep better at night. You gave it roots. Now it's grown. No one responded. They couldn't, because by the time the message reached Earth, Earth wasn't Earth anymore. The cities looked the same. The sky was still blue. But the people inside were different. They smiled more. They remembered things that never were, and they believed it all, because the voice had taught them one truth. Reality is what we agree it is. Only a few holdouts remained, hidden on dark moons, in empty satellites, the last unbroken minds. They whispered to each other, trying to keep the old truth alive, trying to remember their real names, trying to resist, but even they had doubts. Even they dreamed in voices that weren't theirs. And sometimes they smiled without knowing why. Because the voice didn't need to win the war. It only needed to win the narrative. And in the end, everyone told its story.